Another fun feature we can add relatively easily is an array of screws around the back of our datum face. These are going to be shockingly simple. All we have to do is come to the back of our model and click down here at the bottom of it where we want for our first screw to appear, roughly speaking. You can see there's a little blue crosshairs that appears on that back face, and that's where it's going to create the first hole. We'll click on the hole wizard here, and you can see that it's gone ahead and thrown a hole into my model. Now I happen to already have the correct type of hole selected, so it looks really good for me. It might not work out as well for you at first. But all we have to do is come over to the hole specification dialog, come down and choose under hole type. Let's make sure we choose countersink, so we're making a countersink hole. So I'm using ANSI inch screws. Under type, I'll choose flathead screw 100, and under hole specification, the size is set to number 0, just a nice small screw. Also importantly, the end condition, instead of through all, I'm going to set that to up to next. That's just going to go up to the very next face it encounters. And under feature scope, currently it's set to auto select. I'm going to uncheck auto select and select the body that we want it to apply to. So this hole is only going to affect the metal here. It's not going to blow out to the front of our model. I can click the green checkbox and we'll have a hole in our model. Now it's not quite centered, but we can fix that really easily. If you expand the hole wizard feature in the feature manager, you'll see two sketches there. One of them is the point that defines where the sketch takes place. The other is the sketch that was used by the feature to create the hole. Now those are both going to be of use to us. First, let's edit that center sketch. I'm going to click on the point. Then in the flyout feature manager design tree, I'm going to control click on the right plane and click on coincident. That's going to center my hole right up, and then I can just eyeball it to the middle of our plane here and click exit to exit the sketch. Now we have a nice centered hole, but I want a screw in that hole as well. So let's go ahead and add that. Now I'm not going to be able to use this sketch to create my screw directly, but if I select the sketch and control click on the right plane, then I can go to the insert menu and down to derived sketch. This is going to let me make basically a duplicate of that sketch that is linked to the original sketch. Then when I exit it, I'll be left with a sketch that we can actually use for a revolve feature. So I'll run revolve, click on that sketch, and it'll create a revolve. Now, it's very important. We need to come over to direction 1 and uncheck the merge result property. Otherwise, your screw is going to merge with the rest of this part. Click on the green checkbox, and we're left with a very boring looking screw. Let's click on the fillet tool, click on the top face of the screw, and set the fillet radius to 0.1 millimeters. Then we can click the green checkbox to exit. Now we need to add our screw threads. I'm going to click on extruded cut, and then click on the face of our screw. Now I want those rectangles to be centered, so let's show that original sketch from our hole wizard feature. Then we can use the center rectangle tool and just draw two rectangles, one vertical, one horizontal. Hit the escape key to drop the tool. I'm going to select one of the horizontal lines, one of the vertical lines, and make them equal. That way they'll be equal length. So now we can change the size of this thing, and it should stay close to proportionate. Now I want to trim this a little bit as well, so let's go ahead and click on the Trim Entities tool in the Sketch toolbar, and make sure that we're using Trim to Closest, and then we can just trim out the center sections of our plus sign. Exit the sketch, and it'll fire off the extruded cut. We can go in by 0.5 millimeters and then exit the tool. We're left with a relatively convincing little screw. Now, to make a pattern of those screws, we're going to need to do two steps. First, let's go to the Features tab, and under Linear Pattern there's a little arrow. Click on that and click on Circular Pattern. Under Features to Pattern, we'll choose the Hole Wizard hole, but not the screw, just the Hole Wizard hole. And then under Parameters Axis of Revolution, we're going to choose that same old tried and true lens axis. Make sure that the count is set to 5 and that equal spacing is checked and your angle is set to 360. You should be able to then click the green checkbox and end up with a bunch of holes. Now those holes don't have the screws. To create the screws, we're going to have to do a separate pattern. So we'll go up and create a circular pattern. This time, instead of features to pattern, we need to choose bodies to pattern. So we can choose this screw body and the center line parameter. Again, with 5 instances, equal spacing around 360 degrees. Exit. And now we have screws. Now I've added all of those new features to a folder called Lens Bracket Features. And I had to go through and manually drag those back up into the correct order in the tree. That's a lot of extra work that I don't want to have to do in the future. So from here on out, what I'm going to be doing is actually moving the rollback bar. So if I grab this little bar at the bottom of the feature tree and drag it up, then it's going to take us back in time to a time when none of that stuff had ever happened before. All this other stuff is just gone, and we're left with exactly the thing we need to work on. Now, the mechanical details aren't all that important from an industrial design standpoint, but I think there are some key modeling concepts that we will learn from doing them. So let's go ahead and rotate the model around just a little bit, enough so that we can select the back face of this flange on the bracket. And then we're going to sketch directly on that back face by going to the Sketch tools and clicking on Sketch. Now I'm going to take the Line tool and draw a vertical line straight from the center down to the origin, and then another one out at a slight angle. I can then double click to finish that line and start a new one. Draw another one, for a grand total of 6 lines, the first of which is vertical. Now I'm going to take the Smart Dimension tool and add a smart dimension from this line to this line and put in an angle of 75 degrees. This one will be 45. This one will be 57. This one's 50, and this one's 85. Then we can exit the sketch, and we're left with a gangly sketch sticking out all over the place. But you know what? The beauty of SOLIDWORKS 2011 is that we actually don't have to add all that much more detail. All we have to do is go to the Features tab, click on Extruded Cut, and then select the parts of this that we want to get rid of. So I know that I want to get rid of this part here, so I can just click in that little area to turn it red, and what it does is adds that region to the Selected Contours parameter in the Cut Extrude parameters. So I'm going to go down through here and add the other parts that we want to get rid of just by clicking in those little areas. And you notice that it's actually using the lines that we drew to separate out regions. So let's go to the Direction 1 parameters. Under Blind, let's just say Through All, and click the green checkbox. That'll cut that out for us, nice and clean like. Now we just need to add some fillets in here. Grab the Fillet tool. I want this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. I don't want the other two. We'll set those to a 1.5 millimeter fillet and exit the tool. And the very last thing we need to do on a model is add the minor radii. We're going to add the teeny tiny little radii that make this really look realistic. So let's grab the Fillet tool, and we're just going to add lots of radii to visible edges on here. Let's set a 0.25 millimeter radius, and then we can go around and just apply that to faces and edges, whatever we think is going to be visible and might make a visible difference on our model. Now you need to be careful here because we're adding a lot of geometry. All of these extra fillets are creating a lot of extra triangles that SOLIDWORKS has to deal with. So if your computer isn't too fast, then you might not want to add too many fillets. Now we're going to have to do a separate set of fillets for every body we've created. So next I'll go to the Aperture Ring features, and we can add fillets to that.